I've changed the party. Now I want to change the country. I'm not Jeremy Corbyn. That, dealing with all those points that Libby raised about the fear of the left being kind of dangerous in the way that people were afraid of Jeremy Corbyn. Now he's saying we're different. And I think that's a sort of sensible first approach, for his introductory message to the electorate.
Our columnist panel. I'm joined here in the studio by Rachel Sylvester of The Times. Rachel, hello.
Hi, Adam.
And also, I hope Libby Purves is joining us as well.
Morning.
Good morning to you. Now, Libby, what did you make of what we've just heard from Keir Starmer?
I think it's quite sensible of Starmer to bring up the theme of security, because we all know the world is unsteadier even than usual. Max Hastings writing very well in the Times today. And there's an ancient worry in an older generation about Labour, the idea that that's something they don't do properly, that there are Reds under the bed and that there's pacifism and there's sort of Greenham Common demonstrations and so on, the left, Labour. So I think to attack on that front is politically savvy if you're looking at the older keen-to-vote generation. I think sort of be strong on the economy and strong on security are the two things which he has to try and hammer. And that is what he is doing at the moment. It seems obvious.
But he didn't go into military matters, if I can put it that way. He didn't go into the threat from China and Russia and North Korea and Iran. He even dismissed the idea of military national service as teenage dad's army. So he's not going down the same road as Rishi Sunak talking about the most dangerous times.
No, he isn't. But I mean, I'm getting irritable about the national service thing, because everybody is carrying on as if it was the old national service. That you'd be given a gun and shouted at by a sergeant major. And as somebody, a left-wing commentator actually wrote rather bravely online yesterday, he said, "Do you know what? I think possibly that doing one weekend a month of charity work is not actually a fascist hellscape." The Sunak maybe didn't put it quite clearly enough, but this is a very different kind of national service he's talking about, and I think that he's muddied the waters here. The phrase has muddied the waters.
Rachel, putting together economic security, border security, national security, is that a smart policy?
Yeah, it was very much a sort of domestic security, wasn't it? He talked about the sort of basic ordinary hope that he wanted voters to have, the fact that your children would be better off than you were, and that he felt that people didn't feel like that now. And I think in the end that's saying that the election will come down to those economic questions, the cost of living. Do people feel that after 14 years they're better off or worse off? And Labour is taking the view that they're going to feel worse off. But I think a lot of the people, he was rehearsing a lot of the arguments that those of us who are political nerds will have heard before. But for a lot of voters, they'll be, just switching on to Starmer and thinking, actually, who is this guy? So it was a sort of introductory thing. And those messages have changed. So it was, I've changed the party. Now I want to change the country. I'm not Jeremy Corbyn. That, dealing with all those points that Libby raised about the fear of the left being kind of dangerous in the way that people were afraid of Jeremy Corbyn. Now he's saying we're different. And I think that's a sort of sensible first approach, for his introductory message to the electorate.
I mean, he's almost quite deliberately being provocative towards elements of his party, saying, look, suck it up, country first, party second.
Totally. I mean, he couldn't care less about the left of the party. Quite the opposite. He's absolutely thrilled that Jeremy Corbyn is standing as an independent against Labour, because that just reinforces the message that the left are not in charge of the Labour Party anymore. He's got his eyes solely fixed on the prize of winning, and that means winning the centre ground, winning the former Conservative voters. That's what he's got his eyes on, that prize, not trying to suck up to the left. And actually, you contrast the sort of discipline in the Labour Party with what Steve Swimperd was referring to already, that kind of fractures seen in the Conservative Party. They too have their eyes now on the prize.
Libby, I have to say, as soon as he started speaking, going into his life history, a lot of people messaging us saying, my dad was a toolmaker, bingo. I mean, we have heard it a lot before if we've been closely following politics. But on the other hand, Alistair Campbell always used to say that it's only when those people who follow politics are getting bored that the message is getting through to the general public. Do you think he needs to keep on reminding us about his mum and dad and his relatively humble upbringing?
I think it's useful in the same way as I suspect any minute Rishi Sunak to start telling us about delivering messages for his pharmacist parents as well. I think it's something people sort of want to know, that these people will understand what basically ordinary people want and need. And sometimes the only way is to say, no, have they experienced it? You know, do they know what it's like? I mean, this was the trouble with the whole sort of Bullingdon, Boris, David Cameron, sort of George Osborne set, is that people really didn't trust them, and I think that their reputations sort of fell accordingly.
And how much a problem do you think it is that Rishi Sunak, at least his family, they are very rich. They were on the Sunday Times rich list. Their wealth apparently went up by over 100 million in the course of the last year. Is that a real problem for Rishi Sunak, do you think?
I really don't think so. Maybe this is just sort of personal feelings, but you want to see, by their fruits shall you know them. How hard do they work? Do they work hard now? Is Sunak sort of nose down in all the numbers and the figures and so on? I mean, I think he was he was a very sort of assiduous chancellor. I think people care more about, are they actually doing the work, than, are they very, very rich? I think people dislike. They dislike ex-prime ministers making a lot of money, and they dislike MPs getting into bed with big business and so on. But he worked himself, and then he got married to somebody rich, and I think people just sort of say, well, that's it, is what it is.
Do you agree, Rachel?
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think the question that's always a kind of key question at an election is, whose side are you on? So it doesn't matter what wealth he personally has, but he has to demonstrate that he understands how people who don't have that wealth are struggling and feel, and that he's on their side, even if he's not in their situation. So I don't think it does matter, so long as he can take the decisions that prove that. Yeah.
But Keir Starmer, very keen in his speech to remind us of real life experiences of people who are suffering because of the state of the economy. And I want to talk a little bit about political insults because, frankly, as Keir Starmer in the speech we just heard, he didn't really hold back, saying that Rishi Sunak was too weak, weakness upon weakness, that he'd implemented a Rwanda policy which he himself knew would fail. And we're also hearing, and Keir Starmer was asked about it in the question session, that the Conservatives are now trying to say that he's weary, that he's not tough enough, that he's tired. They're even trying to stick, apparently, Sir Sleepy onto him as a sort of Trump-style insult, a bit reminiscent of Sleepy Joe. I mean, he is older than Rishi Sunak, about 20 years, but he's also about 20 years younger than Joe Biden. So what do you think about the
I think
insults?
the Sleepy Keir, whatever it is a slightly weird, because he just doesn't seem sleepy. You see him there, sleeves rolled up, absolutely raring to go for the election campaign. I just don't understand where that came from, where they doesn't resonate. I think if you are going to do an insult, it has to ring true to the voters. And actually, I think people prefer a more positive approach in campaign. The other thing that's interesting, and it sort of plays into this, is the context determines whether or not these things land. So, Rishi Sunak being caught in front of the Titanic, or standing in front of the Titanic, the photo op. I remember going around with John Major in the 97 election, and we were just constantly looking for him standing by exit signs. Or there was one where he went to a Formula One race car,
wheels.
And it was sort of the wheels were coming off the campaign. It was just one metaphor after another. So I think the insult won't work if it's not true, but if the context is pointing in a certain way to a certain narrative, then any photo op or language will play into that.